Hoe Got Roaches in Her Crib by Quan Millz, Chapter 2. After getting her weekend belongings together and following her mother's well-defined set of instructions, Maya sat quiet and attentive in the living room, anxiously awaiting the arrival of her grandmother. Any other normal child would have been watching cartoons on a carefree Saturday morning, but Maya was an exception. The girl wasn't even allowed to watch Saturday morning cartoons, barely could watch TV throughout the week either. Fredquisha thought the moment baby girl started watching the Disney Channel, she'd get hooked to wanting to go to Disney World. And the last thing Fredquisha had on her agenda was to take the daughter she truly didn't want to some amusement park all the way in Florida. Nonetheless, you already know she'd take her sons in a heartbeat. But shit. Even then, Fredquisha was too selfish to even go that far and take her sons out the state on a nice Disney vacation. She'd let their daddies do that. If a bitch was gonna go out of town, it was for her own enjoyment. With the TV off, all Maya could hear was the scrambling of roaches, fluttering their wings, mixed in with the echoing of crackhead voices outside on their already busy street. Clucks looking for an early morning high. Despite being birthed by an insane and abusive bitch, Maya was such an adoring, beautiful young lady. She favored her father, Austin, although she was a tad lighter due to her mother's yellow complexion. Despite having 3B hair grade, Maya's hair was a complete untangled mess this morning and was in a bad need of a new hairdo. No cooked breakfast was in this girl's stomach, and as time ticked away, her stomach growls increased in intensity. Maya could hear from a distance her mother was still in the shower. Under any other circumstance, she would have sat still and obeyed, but the growls rumbling in the acidic pits of her stomach were becoming painful. She couldn't go on any longer. If she was going to subdue her hunger pain, she only had some few minutes left to quickly make herself something to eat. Baby girl slightly slid her body off the couch, but just as she inched herself off of it, she somewhat slid herself back in place. She knew if her mother caught her combing through the fridge without her permission, it would lead to an automatic, immediate ass whooping. She sat for a few more seconds, contemplating what she should do. With the stomach pains increasingly surpassing her threshold of tolerance, an emboldened Maya, quiet as she could be, got up from the couch and sauntered into the kitchen. Although she was too short to look into the sink, roaches raved and rioted amongst mountains of pans, plates, cereal bowls, and utensils sedentary in the sink. Trillions of bacteria and viruses were living out their best days on them mold-covered dishes. Fredquisha, nor her two oldest sons, hadn't done the kitchen in days, so the roaches were having a fest, going after remnants of food rotting away in the sink. Thank the heavenly Lord, baby girl didn't need to get anything out of the sink. Otherwise, she probably would have come down with a horrible strep throat infection. Maya opened the refrigerator and looked around to see if she could possibly make herself a small ham and cheese sandwich. Her eyes latched onto the package of ham and then a loaf of bread sitting in the fridge. Knock, knock, knock! Maya's slightly underweight body jumped at the sound of someone knocking at the front door. Not wanting to look like she was doing the opposite of what Fredquisha told her to do, Maya suddenly slammed the fridge's door and then dashed back into the living room and sat on the couch, pretending as if she hadn't made a move. The knocks on the door were more than likely coming from Maya's grandmother, Mrs. Watkins. Damn, girl, go get the door, Fredquisha growled as she made her way into the living room, frantically rubbing her head with a pink towel. A Newport cig drooped from her lips. Fredquisha quickly slipped her black satin bonnet back on and took a puff from her cigarette. After taking a shower, Fredquisha opted this time to put on a maroon 2000 Pierce family reunion t-shirt with a big oak tree spread across the faded t-shirt and the slogan, "A family that prays together stays together." It was written in cursive under it. Pretty ironic this ratchet bitch would be wearing such a shirt given that she didn't give two shits about trying to keep any semblance of family. Fredquisha was the type of hoe that didn't want a real lasting sense of peace with Austin nor his family. Yeah, granted, her and Austin weren't together anymore, but at least for the sake of Maya's happiness and welfare, one would think that Fred Quisha would want to keep good relations with with her father's family. Nope. Maya quickly got up from the dirty, stained brown cotton couch and opened the door. "Grandma!" Maya exclaimed as she lunged at her 61-year-old grandmother and gave her the tightest embrace. "Girl, I ain't seen you in forever. Oh, how I miss you so much. You ready for this weekend? You know your daddy missed you so much and he can't wait to see you." Mrs. Watkins smiled and exclaimed as she held her grandbaby. "I missed you too, Granny," shy Maya shouted, somewhat fighting back tears. She was so glad to see her grandmother. As Mrs. Watkins stepped closer into the house, she scanned the living room and quickly muzzled her face with her right hand. She looked back down at Maya, trying to playfully ignore the wretchedness of the living room. If she thought that the living room space was bad, she needed to see the rest of the motherfucking apartment. The house horribly reeked. The smell tearing apart her nostrils was almost inexpressible. An aromatic melange of fishy pussy, cheap alcohol, cigarettes, roach spray, fried chicken, piss, booty cheese, must, hair grease, old hair weave, unwashed clothes, rotting food, and pickle juice overwhelmed Mrs. Watkins' nasal cavity. It was the fragrance of abject squalor and ratchetry. The iron, though, was that The irony, though, was that Mrs. Watkins could tell Fred Quisha attempted to mask the conglomerate of disgusting smells with some cheap dollar store zesty mountain spring air freshener. As Mrs. Watkins continued to look around and absorb the nastiness of the apartment, her eyes even burned a bit. Her skin even itched a tingled. Even itched a tingled. Maybe her reaction was a bit psychosomatic, but any decent person stepping into the apartment probably would have had the same reaction. The last time Mrs. Watkins saw her granddaughter was about a good 7 months ago. Although Fred Quisha had full custody over Maya, occasionally she would allow Mrs. Watkins to talk to Maya over the phone or let her stay with her over a weekend. Of course, this was only done when it was of utmost convenience to Fred Quisha. Even with all of the bullshit and tension present between Austin and Fred Quisha, Mrs. Watkins always tried her best to be cordial with the psycho mother for the sake of Maya's welfare. Although there had been times when the grandmother wanted to fuck Fred Quisha up, like she was some random, disrespectful street bitch who tried to snatch her purse, when, in truth, she was, Mrs. Watkins didn't have it in her to stoop to gutter snipe level. Doing so could have potentially ruined any chance her son had at regaining some visitation rights once he got out. Mrs. Watkins always offered her assistance and monetary help to make sure Fred Quisha was taking good care of her granddaughter, even despite living all the way out in Madison, the far southeast suburbs of Chicago. Mrs. Watkins had no problem driving into the city to get her granddaughter for the weekends. One would think that any opportunity Fred Quisha had to get rid of the girl, she would take it. Oh, and then add in some cash too? But no, Mumu didn't want to take the risk of having Maya tell her grandmother something that might lead to some sort of child welfare investigation from the city or the state. Then, Franquisha always wanted to feign she was on some Miss Independent shit. But bitch, you dependent on the state. The fuck? Anyways. However, the weekend, after 7 months of not seeing the girl, Fredquisha finally allowed Maya to go stay with her grandmother for a few days. Although it did take a deep talk with Dr. Serling for Fredquisha to do so, her permission came with a stern warning to her daughter. Throughout the week, Fredquisha kept telling Maya that if she fucked up and revealed any details about their living situation and how she was being treated, she'd whip her ass and maybe even kill her. Damn, child, your mama's been feeding you. Damn, child, your mama ain't been feeding you or something, Mrs. Watkins jokingly remarked. But a degree of concern was laced in her voice as she gazed Maya up and down. The grandmother noticed Maya look a bit underweight. Maya didn't respond. "Don't be telling your grandma shit, or I'll take you out this world." That's all grandbaby could hear her mother say as she thought up of a possible response to her grandmother's question. Rather than say something, she just opted to continue to hold her granny tightly, didn't want to let her go. Fredquisha, standing some short feet away, formed a slight grimace on her face. She was ready to beat Maya's little ass if she gave Mrs. Watkins any inclination that she wasn't feeding her. Yeah, she wasn't feeding her all right. Vienna sausages, canned beans, off brand Cocoa Puffs with milk beyond its expiration date, on the verge of curdling. Mind you, her sons were eating like young Saudi Arabian royalty: McDonald's, gyros, pizza puffs, chicken wings, ice cream, candy, Mexican food, etc. Even when this Fredquisha bitch got her stamps and treated her kids to pizza, Maya was only allowed to have half of one slice and one buffalo drumette. No ranch sauce either. The rest of the greasy Friday pizza mini buffet was devoured by her two chubby, spoiled sons. Mrs. Watkins then looked up at Fredquisha with a flat, somewhat angered face as she ran her hands through Maya's uncombed hair. She grumbled, "Hey, Fredquisha, you got our stuff ready?" "Yeah, go get your bag, baby girl," Fredquisha commanded Maya. Crazy she would call her baby girl. It was obvious she was putting on a show for Mrs. Watkins. Under any other circumstance, Fredquisha would have been calling the girl an expletive like hoe or bitch. But now that her grandmother was here, she had to at least pretend to be endearing. Maya let go of Mrs. Watkin, and they made her way back into the dusty living room, picked up a small black garbage bag near the coffee table, and then strolled over back to her grandmother. Mrs. Watkins saw the garbage bag in Maya's hand, her face flying to a state of complete shock and confusion. "This is her clothes and whatnot? Are you kidding me? You ain't got this girl an overnight bag or a suitcase?" Fredquisha rolled her eyes and exhaled. "Mrs. Watkins, I can't afford any of that right now. I'm on a strict income. Look, the garbage bag will be just fine. Besides, don't she got some clothes at your house and shit?" Fredquisha spat as she puffed on her Newport. "Yeah, I do, but seeing how she looks like she lost some weight, I don't know if she will fit into any of those clothes." "Well, like I said, that's all I got, so I'm sure y'all will figure it out. Anyways, I'll see y'all tomorrow. I gotta get going because I got my hair appointment soon." "You know, Fredquisha, if you need help or needed me to buy stuff, you could have always called me or said something," Mrs. Watkins chirped as she held Maya. "Mrs. Watkins, please, I got it. I know what I'm doing. I don't need you questioning my parenting skills or nothing like that. Besides, if your hard-headed son wasn't in jail, maybe he could contribute." Mrs. Watkins' mouth dropped and shook her head. "Hey, don't bring my son up into this. I know he ain't perfect and made plenty of mistakes. He knows that too, as he sits up in that jail, but you know damn well I'm here to give you help if you need it. You got my granddaughter out here looking all raggedy and shit." Mrs. Watkins spat as she looked around the filthy apartment. Her disturbed pupils once again scanned the baseboards running along the apartment floors and noticed thick gray crud laying them. A telltale sign that it hadn't been cleaned in ages. Empty Domino pizza boxes were scattered all over the living room. Empty bottles of vodka and Hennessy lined the adjacent kitchen countertops. Mrs. Watkins then looked up at the ceiling and saw a group of big, thuggish roaches running a train on some thought roach in the corner. Her thick roach pussy juice splashed all over the place. "And look at this place. This place is absolutely filthy. Fredquisha, how in the hell are you raising 3 kids here? This makes no damn sense. You got these babies living with roaches. Mrs. Watkins, please, just leave, please. You're doing the most right now." Fredquisha barked, shaking her head, shooing Mrs. Watkins and Maya away. "You lucky I'm even letting her ass go with you." Mrs. Watkins shook her head and huffed, not even bothering to patronize that last rude-ass comment. "Come on, baby girl, let's go." Knowing Fredquisha was manipulative and a scallywag, Mrs. Watkins grabbed her granddaughter by her hand and scurried them out of the apartment and into the parking lot, where her Nissan Murano sat idle. Jonah, Mrs. Watkins' youngest son, and also Maya's uncle, sat in the front passenger seat, waiting for the 2 ladies to arrive. Mrs. Watkins approached the left passenger side of the truck. She was glad she contained her words moments ago, since she knew if she gave any lip back to Fredquisha, suddenly her ass would use that as ammunition to stop Maya from spending the weekend with her. Mrs. Watkins opened the back passenger door, helped Maya in, and then threw her bag of clothes in the back. "Hey, Uncle Jonah," Maya smiled as she reached in to give Uncle Jonah a hug. Jonah scanned his niece up and down and too noticed Maya's bodily changes. Maya, girl, you getting so big, but you looking so skinny. Your mama ain't feeding you or something? Maya didn't say anything. She just shrugged her shoulders. Remember, little bitch, I'll fuck you up if you run your mouth. I know, right? I said the same damn thing back in the apartment, Mrs. Watkins commented, hearing Jonah's observation about Maya's visible weight loss. Anyway, we're gonna go to Golden Corral on our way back home and get you some real food in your stomach. You hungry, baby girl? Mrs. Watkins asked as she helped Maya secure herself in the seat and then proceeded to help her fasten her seatbelt. Yes, ma'am, Maya innocently answered with a huge smile running across her face. Good then. We gotta go get some food in your stomach before you dance tonight, Mrs. Watkins closed Maya's door and then opened her door, got in and fastened her seatbelt. The family took off and made their way back to the suburbs. This particular weekend, there were two reasons why Fredquisha reluctantly agreed to let Maya go over her grandmother's house. One, Fredquisha just wanted to have this weekend to herself, kids free, destined to meet someone new and get some rich trap boy dick. Fredquisha didn't want to have to deal with any distractions coming from her kids. Secondly, this weekend, Chicago's Cook County Jail was hosting a daddy-daughter dance for inmates. At the request of Dr. Tamika Sterling, Austin's jail-based social worker, she wanted Maya to attend the daddy-daughter dance. The 5th annual daddy-daughter dance was hosted in the first week of June. The county chief sheriff started the widely successful program to help inmates keep their bond strong with their children. The dance essentially served as inspiration and motivation for inmates to stay on good behavior and ultimately get out of jail, get their lives right, and never come back. It was the perfect way to reduce recidivism, given the program had been piloted in other cities and was shown to be a success. Austin, initially pessimistic that Fredquisha would even agree and let Maya attend this year, was super elated when he found out through Dr. Sterling that Fredquisha granted Maya permission to come. Maya was excited too, since she had not seen her father since he was locked up. When it came to making weekend plans, Fredquisha usually had no issues sending her sons over to her mother's place. However, when it came to Maya, she didn't want her around her own family and refused to let her mother spend time or money on the girl. If her mother was going to spend money on her children, she wanted all dollars to go towards her sons, not Maya. This bitch was so twisted. If and when Fredquisha got a sitter for the girl, usually it would have been one of her besties like Paulette or Chantenay. Now finally, free from her children, Fredquisha was in full carnival mood. She slammed her apartment front door, locked it, and made her way into the kitchen, rummaging through her virtually empty fridge. Fredquisha pulled out a brand new chilled bottle of Tito's vodka and some orange juice. But baby, let me tell you, looking around even more, this kitchen was an absolute fucking disaster. Dishes had been in the sink for weeks. A couple of juvenile roaches danced around an adjacent countertop like they were at an 8th grade prom. The linoleum flooring was sticky from constant spills of grape drink, soda, and other sugary liquids. Over to the left, at an adjacent countertop, sat several open containers of fried chicken bones covered in ketchup-stained wax paper. If one were to look closely, mice pebble shit was scattered all over the floors as well. Aside from the growing roach problem, mice were another growing issue. But Fredquisha was unbothered. Glenn, the crackhead maintenance man, told her to get a cat to deal with the mouse problem, but Fredquisha hated animals despite living with an array of vermin. Fredquisha closed the fridge and then walked into her living room, but damn, God knows what lay behind the stove and fridge. Fungus, mold, more mice shit, a roach kingdom, a roach galaxy, who knows? Any respectable landlord wouldn't tolerate this absolute filth, but Mr. Garrison didn't want to piss off tenants and lose them. This part of Englewood that Fredquisha lived in was perhaps one of the most dangerous sections in the entire city of Chicago, perhaps even Illinois. With shootings happening damn near every night, no one in their right mind dared to want to willingly live in this area. Nonetheless, Fredquisha didn't mind. She was born and raised in the neck of the woods, and to her, the area was just the set. She reasoned no one would fuck with her since she knew all the guys in the area. Fredquisha sat down on the couch, turned on her television, and tuned into a rerun of Judge Mathis. She cracked the bottle of vodka open and took a swig. Then she opened up the carton of orange juice and poured it into a mug she had sitting on her coffee table. God knows how long that mug has been sitting there, but Fredquisha used the mug usually for her homemade cocktails. After she made herself a cocktail, she took slow sips. This bitch obviously lied about needing to go somewhere. Paulette's ass was going to come over some hours later and glue that raggedy weave into her head in less than an hour. Fredquisha needed her kids out because she had her an 11 a.m. dick appointment coming up soon. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Fredquisha's phone vibrated. There the dick was, ready to get jumped on. She whipped her phone out her right pocket and saw a text message coming from Deontay, one of her guys. Deontay, WYOF. What you on, fam? Fredquisha began typing back. Shit, nothing. Waiting for you. Where you at? Buzz. Deontay. About 20 minutes away. I got one of my guys with me. Fredquisha typed back. Okay, so glad these kids is gone. I need some dick and more weed ASAP. Buzz. Deontay. I got you. I'm on my way. Fredquisha responded. Who buddy? Buzz. Deontay. One of the guys from the block. He famo. Good peoples. He ain't on bullshit. Fredquisha asked, he down for whatever? Buzz. Deontay. Yeah. Fredquisha agreed. Okay, hit my line when you get here. Buzz. Deontay. Bet.